everyone, and welcome back to the Always On Point podcast here with Kristen Ambo, sponsored by my company, Point Mortgage. I am back with our 3 real estate experts on both the selling and buying side. So we're here with Miss Payton Krueger, Jessica Kalwitz, and Dawn Quait from Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group in the Fox Valley. And I mean, really, you guys, I've seen you guys touch base up in the Green Bay market and things around that nature too. So it's not just to the Fox Valley, but they were great enough to be with us. If you tuned in last week, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Last week was all about sellers. This week's about buyers. If you did not tune in last week, I advise you to go back, listen to the selling side, because they've had some really great information about what to look for in a selling agent and why it's important to work with a selling agent of value and what value add that is and what you need to be cautious of in this market. So right now, we're going to flip the switch and we're going to go to buyer side. So for all the buyer's agents out there or all of the buyers who are either in the market buying or thinking about buying, these are some tips. We wanted to bring this together for you guys so you know what to look for. And I will help a little bit more on this side because I don't typically work with the sellers. I work with buyers because I'm on the lending side getting the pre-approvals done. And what is the number one tip right now when you sit down with a buyer that you're going to work with? What are you telling them to do if they have not before?
Get their pre-approval.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
To know that they're ready.
We are ready. We know this. So many times, and I'm going to say this just as a plug-in for myself right now and to hopefully buy myself a little more time. If you are a buyer and you are going to schedule an appointment to see a house with an agent, before you sit down, even before you interview them, get pre-approved. Because one of the first things you're going to ask for is, have you been pre-approved with the lender? Right? Because you want to know that you're sitting down and you're working with somebody who can legit buy a house in the price point they're telling you, and just quick doing an online calculator and telling yourself that it's about the same as what your rent is now, so you should be okay, is not the answer.
Right.
Is not the answer, because mortgages, I've had people who can't get qualified to rent get qualified to buy a house and vice versa. So, just starting off with that. But when you're sitting down and you are, like you had just said, Dawn, you guys are being interviewed more than ever by buyers agents right now.
Yeah. Buyers are interviewing their agent.
Or buyers are interviewing their agents.
They're interviewing multiple agents so
Okay.
that they know what's the best fit for them.
Yeah.
Whether they're told that they need to or they've had a bad experience, right?
Yeah.
It's important that you as the agent working for the buyers understand where they're coming from.
Yes.
Right? If they're saving up all of this money, trusting you to help them find that next home, that you really know what value you bring to the table as the agent. How are you going to help them? How are you going to be different than the experience that they may have had before?
Yeah.
How can you do even better? Because sometimes they had a really good experience. So how can I match that or be even better?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. What do you think, Payton?
I like to have fun with buyers. I like to
Yeah.
figure out different, because I work a lot with first-time home buyers. So anything under 3, which is pretty hard. So I like to think outside the box and be creative
Sure.
in offers and how to get them winning over something else,
Yeah.
especially when you're competing against 30, 40
Right. And
in our area sometimes.
yes, it's crazy, especially with that first time home buyer. That it's crazy to think that a first time home buyer is probably in that 150 to 350, and I know that's a really big gap, but that's where we're at right now with first time home buyers. It really
Very
is.
true.
And it's such a gap. It's not just I'm right around 100,000 first time home buyer anymore. It's not that way at all. And so understanding what that looks like for them and why. Jessica, what is something I know you work with a lot of buyers too. So what is something you're having those discussions with? One of the first things.
Yep. So I always sit down with buyers. I do not just run to houses. I just always sit down with buyers and I do a buyer's consult. And in there, not only do I get to learn what they're looking for in their next house, but I give them a little education. I'm very big on education as well.
Yeah.
So I do go through the contracts with them and I explain, what earnest money is, what down payment is, taxes, who pays this, who pays that. Like I go into a lot of depth with the contracts, just so that they are more comfortable when we're in the homes and I'm asking all of these questions about everything. Talk about inspections, talk about what radon is, all the things. So
all the things that
Everything.
people don't like. as a first time home buyer, I don't know what radon is. What is radon? Why
Or
does it
earnest
matter?
money?
Yeah.
Right. Earnest money is a huge one, Dawn. Thank you so
Like
much for bringing
what?
that up. And since you did, you are the lucky one that gets to explain what earnest money is to the people listening, because I guarantee you there's somebody listening that still doesn't truly understand it.
So earnest money is that like good faith. Like, hey, I'm a serious buyer.
Yep.
And here's how I'm going to show you, Mr. Seller, how I'm serious. I'm going to put down this amount of money, right?
Yep.
A percentage or a dollar amount, right?
Yeah.
Like just depends upon where your comfort level is. It's like good faith saying, hey, this is how serious I am. I'm willing to risk this much sitting in a trust account. Hopefully at the end, then it's credited to me as the buyer in the end. But I'm willing to risk this up front, and this is how serious I am.
Yeah.
Right? But as a buyer's agent going, okay, be cautious about your risk. How much can you theoretically afford to actually leave in that earnest money account in the trust account? Because if something happens, could you risk losing that money, right? Like that's a big if. And
It
it's not
is.
like you can just walk away and go, oh, I get my earnest money back. Or the seller believes like, hey, I can just keep it. No, there's so much more to that. But that earnest money is, kind of that handshake of like, this is how serious I am.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm willing to kind of risk.
And I can't even tell you guys how many times I'm doing pre-approvals with buyers who have agents who, when I bring up the earnest money, they're like, what's that? It's never been discussed. They have no idea. So the fact that you guys focus on that is huge, because it is really important to understand that you don't just get it back if you cancel. There's so much, and every time a client says, well, I just get my earnest money back then, right? I always say, talk to your agent. I don't know where you guys are at in the negotiating process. I don't know where you're at in the whole system. There's going to be some sellers that will not give it back. I've seen that happen.
To which sometimes we have to say, you have to talk to an attorney.
Yeah.
We can't even guide them at times. Like it's not that simple. It's
Yeah.
not that straightforward.
Yep. You can't just wake up one morning and say, yeah, I'm not going to buy this house. Now I'll get all my money back. Like
Yeah.
that's the other thing. We left off on that last week. These are legal contracts. And as a buyer, it's so important. And I have seen it, and I will, because I want to go into this a little bit next, because there is still that mentality of, I can just represent myself. I don't need an agent. I can just represent myself. I have seen buyers buy homes for sale by owner, and when those appraisals come in, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over what the asking price was, because they weren't, it wasn't represented correctly. I've also seen people buy houses for sale by owner because the seller refuses to work with somebody and fall apart and completely leave in legalities, because they both assumed completely different of the one, same exact offer, same as exact rating, but they were both interpreting it wrong. Or I won't say wrong, but differently is the better word, not wrong. And then they start infighting, and they rarely ever work out cleanly. So having a buyer agent represent you is massive. So we talked about it with selling. I want to go in as a buyer. If I'm a buyer and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to interview each of you, what is a value add? And why do I need a buyer's agent to represent me? Now, hold on. Before we do that, as I'm thinking about this, sorry, I'm thinking about this out loud. We have to also disclose what a buyer agent is, because I don't think that people listening, and I just say people because I don't think it matters if you're a buyer or a seller, who you are. I don't think they understand what truly being represented by an agent means, and that there's multiple representations of you guys. So, buyer's agent, who wants to take it and discuss further?
I can. So
Okay.
a buyer's agent is where you are hiring your agent to negotiate the terms on your behalf.
Okay.
So whether that is giving the opinion of value, or what you think, what your agent thinks that you should go in at the offer price, or any type of contingency, we're able to help negotiate.
So, as a buyer, I'm coming to you, my buyer's agent,
Yes.
because we're in contract together, and now you can tell me your advice on everything I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay. What if I don't sign a buyer's agency agreement? What does that mean then, Payton?
Can't help you out as much.
And I
can
think
still
that's
write
so
the offer.
so important.
and stuff, and we can still, tell you the current market trends and like but we cannot guide you on like this is what if you want to win, this is what you're going to have to
Like
do.
your expertise about being in the
Yeah.
market, you have to leave it so much more vague.
Yes. And like, again, I love working with buyers because it makes me work, like my brain work very hard,
Yes.
which sounds crazy, but it does because you have to think outside the box. And like
You
just
do.
recently I had one where they were not first time home buyers, but they had a home to sell and they were pre-approved up to 475. This house was listed at 450 and still in that price point, like and it was in Appleton.
Yep.
You're going to be going up against other offers. So having a home sale contingency, a little difficult. They had been working with another agent for, I think it was a year and a half. And then that agent was like, I just can't do it. I don't know. Like, they need some fresh eyes on them. Can you please help me out? Like, you take them and run with them. Go get them a house. The first house we wrote on, we got it accepted. And the agent called me and I like to call. Like, I have these like little secret weapons I'll pull out and like put in my offer to help my buyers out.
Yeah.
And the listing agent called me and he said, I need to start going to meetings more and he was from our office and he's like, I need to start going to meetings more because I don't know where you learned that. But if you didn't have that in there, there's no way your offer would have been accepted. Like
Being in the market, like you learn these little like tips and tricks that make your offer so much stronger.
Yeah.
And if you hire a buyer's agent, they can
that's what
help
we're
you with
here
that
for.
kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. As a customer, they wouldn't have known what
Right.
to do.
Right.
They wouldn't have gotten that
As
accepted.
a customer, you have to identify like the material adverse specs. So it's like clearly if the roof is caving in
Yeah,
or
we still
something
have to say
big
that.
like that, we still have to be able
Do
to
that
help
due
you with that.
diligence, yes.
But I mean, it's more when we get to the table, it's more, what do you want to do?
And
what
it's
do you want to
more
write in your offer?
personal. Like,
you know, as a buyer's agent, we have more of a conversation. I would say, do you want this or do you not? Here's the odds of you probably getting it accepted if we have this in here. Here's the odds if you don't.
So there's two types of buyers. There's the customer who's not signed under buyer's agency, which doesn't get the extra attention that you need, in my opinion. Sorry, I'm just going to say it. And then there's the buyer's agent who has been interviewed, been vetted, you're in contract with, you're saying, I trust you to get this job done with me. And now that buyer's agent is pulling out all the stops to make sure you are getting into that house. And so you want to be represented by that. You want that buyer's agent working on your behalf, which is also a very fair spot to come in and say, if you are a buyer, and because this is the other one I get, well, I'm just going to work with the listing agent because then I'll get a better deal because they're actually working on the whole thing. And so then they'll get a better deal for me. What is your advice on working with both parties?
Good luck. Well, so you have to, if it's my listing,
Yep.
and somebody calls me and they
Yep.
specifically want to work with me, it's my responsibility up front to say who I'm working for and
Yep.
who I represent. And this is, if you're okay with it, right? Like, here's
Yes.
your choice.
Yep.
Right, here's the risk, here's the benefit, right?
Yep.
Here's the risk, here's the consequence. So understanding that I'm negotiating on behalf of the seller at all times because that's who I represent. That is my client. I'm under contract with them.
Yeah.
Right. So you can, and we probably have all done it.
I'm going to say, I'm sure you
before.
all have been on the both the buyer and seller side. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what I think people don't realize is that they're not necessarily being represented.
No.
And the reason why I can say that is because then they call me and say, well, Kristen, what would you do? And I say, I'm not licensed to be a real estate agent. I'm only licensed to be your loan officer. I can't negotiate those things for you. You've chosen to represent yourself at that point.
And I
Well, and
think
if
that's the
appraisal comes in low, right, that's
Yep.
a real simple one. So, the buyer writes an appraisal in there and you're representing the seller. Granted, the buyer is your customer. Who am I going to negotiate for? I'm negotiating for the seller, so I'm going to try and negotiate as much as possible that my seller gets
Yeah.
from that versus as the buyer's agent going, let's just let it ride or whatever it might be. I'm
Yeah.
not working for the buyer. I'm working with you, but you can't stay neutral. That's the one thing I've learned in this business. There's no such thing. It's in our contract that you can choose an option to be neutral. Good luck, because
Yes.
if you're under contract, you're either under contract with the seller or you're under contract with the buyer.
But
and
either way, you're under contract with one or the other.
one or the other.
Yep.
And it's okay, right? It's okay no matter what your choice is if that's what's best for you. But just know you should be educated and that listing agent should explain to you.
Yeah, as long as they know. Like, we had one of my fiance's really good friends. He one day was like, yeah, we bought a house. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
And he's like, yeah, called up the listing agent because, it saves us money.
Sorry.
I was like, oh.
And they're laughing, you guys,
doesn't.
because
And
it
he
doesn't
had
save them money.
No, it doesn't save you money. And he had no idea. He had no idea that I could have just represented him. He would have had me in his corner negotiating through the whole process and then getting him to the closing table. And he wouldn't have even
Yeah.
likely had to pay for my commission.
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to ask me if he got a deal. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Can't help you now.
Can't.
I
tell
cannot help you. I was like,
What does Zillow
that's
tell
what
you?
you did.
Yeah. And if your friends,
So he just didn't know.
right? And that's what I find to be the and that's why these things matter, and that's why these podcasts and all of this matters, is because it's educating you on things that you guys think you might understand in the in the realm of everything, right? Even talking about it, meaning the consumer, things like that. But crazy enough, like every industry, there are people that will take advantage of you in our industry. They will take advantage of you on the lending side. I mean, in my side, I just got done telling these girls that I had a couple clients this week that were told by lenders they can lock in, and didn't matter with multiple lenders. They could just figure it out at the closing table, and that's a whole nother podcast. But why I'm bringing that back around is there are listing agents who are going to say, yeah, you can work with me. You don't need to be represented on your own, because they're predatory, and the only thing they're looking out for is keeping that 6% commission in their own pocket.
Yeah, you're still paying the same price.
As a seller, you're still paying the same price. Most sellers are paying that commission. So as a buyer's agent, you are typically being represented for nothing. And let me tell you this, if the seller is not willing, this is my own opinion, but if the seller is not willing to cover that cost for the buyer's agent, they are putting themselves, they're pigeoning themselves in a hole where they don't have the most buyers that could come into play. And if it's strictly on negotiations, then buyers, it is worth the weight in gold to pay your buyer's agent that commission as part of a closing cost, because you need to be represented. I'm telling you right now, representing yourself is the last resort
You
for
just have
so many
no idea
reasons.
what could go on in a deal.
And
No idea.
for the legalities of everything.
This is the most litigious, one of the most litigious businesses, meaning it ends up in
100%.
court so many times. I mean, our property condition report when I started 10 years ago was 3 pages. It's 6 pages.
Yes.
That should show you. And that was in a matter of like 6 years, right, Jess? Like where it was like, holy cow. It is the most litigious business. Why would you not want that consumer protection? As a buyer, my job is to help protect you and your interests. Same with this as a listing agent, right? Like I'm protecting the seller. So why would you not want that protection? I'm doing the best that I can to help guide you, but I'm also here to protect you. Like taking one line from a contract might unprotect you from everything. So you need to know, is that listing agent striking through that to protect you or to protect the seller? Like who is that? You know, it's the insurability. We all kind of gloss over it, but as the buyer, that could be a really big deal. Maybe the home is really not insurable, and now because you didn't check that box, you know, what protection do you have? You don't, so
Right.
to say. It's kind of off. It's like it's a moot point because it wasn't checked. So I think that's important as a buyer's agent, is that we help the buyer understand we're there to protect you. I'm not there to, I want to make sure you get the house. I want to make sure that you don't overpay. Right? Like all of the things. I want to make sure that you're protected, but also too, I want to make sure that it's seamless, because this is there's a lot of stress in buying and selling homes. I don't know if anybody knows that.
Right.
Emotions.
If you work in the industry, you do.
Yeah.
You have the best day and the worst day within the same 5 minutes as a
Yes.
real estate agent,
Really.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, as a lender, you just go, wow, that was a great roller coaster ride that I never hopped on. But
Yeah.
but our buyers need to not feel some of that stress. And if you're quote unquote representing yourself, you'll feel that stress. And it could end up that it really wrongs you in the end. That money you thought you saved is now sitting out in court, or you bought a property where you didn't even
Right.
know that there was a rented propane, or right? Like,
There's just so much, and not all of it's malicious.
no.
Especially if a for sale by owner, Like both parties are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just don't understand
Yeah.
the things that you need. And so there's so much that goes into a buyer's agent. And, working with an agent who's tried and true is huge. Now, don't get me wrong. I have family that's new in the industry. They're working with mentors to help them out. They have that backup. Give them a chance. I'm not saying don't ever work with a newbie, but make sure they're with a reputable company, that they've got a mentor, that they're doing these things, because one of the biggest value adds that I know of as a lender who works with a lot of buyers is agents who go above and beyond to make sure they're educated, they're leading you and all that. And I will vouch for all three of these women. They do all their continuing ed. They go to every meeting possible. They know all the negotiating strategies. And I'm not going to ask them to share their strategies right now, because that's part of what hiring them is for. And that's part of why they get the winning offers that they get on a regular, consistent basis. You need to have those little things in your pocket for them. But man, having somebody who's been in the industry who can show you that they've closed. I think as a buyer's agent, and I was just talking about this, I want a sheet of all the different price points that you've closed, to show me that you can, you've worked at 100,000 as well as you've worked at 500. And I don't really care if I'm not looking in the $1 million property anyway. It doesn't matter to me if you've worked in that market. But I feel like the reason why is because I know then you've already done negotiating at all these other price points. And some of the most strategic negotiating right now is, I don't know, anywhere from 100,000 to 600,000 or more. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
strategy and negotiating is everything right now. It's just everything as a buyer. And having somebody who knows how to do that in your behalf is what's going to get you that winning offer. No buyer wants to put in 25 offers before they get the accepted one. They get fatigued, they get run down, they've got all of that. But I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be the case. There's so many buyers that we get pre-approved on Friday who put in an offer on Sunday, and I get the accepted on Monday. That can be your reality. But who you're setting up for your team is what matters most. And again, circling back to the beginning of this, also so important as to why you get that pre-approval up front, right? And the amount of agents that I see who are like, Kristen, I just showed them a property today. It's Sunday. Kristen, sorry to do this last minute. I just showed them a property today, and now they want to write an offer, and they haven't even begun the process. And the first thing that goes through my head as a lender is, when in the hell did you guys schedule this showing? Because if it was Friday, I would have loved to know then. So we could get the pre-approval started. And I'm saying that in front of the three of these women because I know none of them do that.
Right.
I know I'm getting the call on Friday that said, Kristen, we're showing a house this weekend. I need a last minute pre-approval. And that to me is not last minute. That gives me 2.5 days. I feel like that's glorious.
Well, we get the calls too, right?
Yeah.
Not just you. We get the
Right,
calls.
for
and
sure.
sometimes
There's two
people
sides
don't
of
really
this.
know that
They
they're
don't
ready
know.
to buy. And so we get both sides.
Yes.
But I had one where I was being interviewed along with another agent, and I, like Jessica, do my buyer consult. Like, we meet before we go show houses
Yeah.
because I know better, right? Experience teaches you that
Yes.
you don't want them to lose out on the home.
Right.
And so the person that I was up against took the buyer to the house to talk about features and those kind of things. The house was $50,000 over their budget. Guess what happens? They fall in love with that house. Now everything, the pre-approval comes through, they're not qualified for that home. Now everything compares to that big home.
That
At
they
that
never should have
higher
been looking
price
at
point
either.
that they never should have been looking at. And it's, and the agent didn't do anything wrong. It's how they
Right.
run their business, and that's totally fine. It just, this poor person now has lost out on that dream home that they thought they could get. But I just won't show you a home till I can see on your pre-approval what you're qualified
Right.
for. I don't want you to love it and lose it, because I want to sell you that home too.
Yes.
But you can't afford to buy it. And so that's that caution with your agent, making sure that, not that you have to do your buyer consult at an office. Sometimes it happens at Starbucks, right?
Yep.
Sometimes it happens at, wherever, McDonald's or whatever it is. But talking about and making sure that your game plan sets you up for success, not failure. That's awful. It's an awful feeling. And the tears come, and, it's a hard spot to be in
Right.
as a buyer.
And thank you. And I'm glad, because I want to circle back on what I was just saying there, because I have talked to agents who are like, I'll have a gimme to get to know the buyer. Like, if they're just calling me, we'll show them one, whatever. And you're right. Everybody's got a different way of running their business. As a buyer, I think where I meant to go with that, and I think that this will come off a little bit better, is as a buyer, or I should say as a lender, so many times buyers come to me and they're like, well, why won't they just show me a house? Or why won't they just, and the reality is this is why. Because now if you didn't get accepted at 450 and you got accepted for 400, you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
You're not a failure at all. You can buy a $400,000 property, and they are seriously trying to protect you from yourself sometimes. And that's really what it's about, is because they want you to enjoy this process and not go into it feeling let down. And that is where I meant to go with it. So I'm glad that you kind of sorted that out for me, Dawn, because that's truly what it's about.
Bringing up that buyer consult, or me, because I do buyer consults with my buyers too all the time, and I normally try to meet at the office.
Yeah,
I'm like, come here, please, and they're like, can we just look at a house and we'll talk about it after? I'm like, no, that's not how this works. So I always bring them in, and then the amount of people who don't know what title is.
Nobody knows.
Nobody
say
knows
like
what it is.
I
So
think there's probably a handful of people that matter. Yeah,
it's crazy. They'll look at me like a deer in headlights. Like, what is title?
I mean, I have to pay for that.
Yeah.
There's a fee.
Right.
And they are always my.
Yeah.
Another reason why you need to talk to an agent, because I don't know how people do it.
Right. And my two big red flags, and for those of you that listen to our podcast regularly, one of them is if you search for the lowest interest rate, you'll find it. But at what point is it going to cost you? Is it either going to cost you a ton of money in fees, or is it going to cost you closing on time and losing out on those contingencies? On their end, you can search for the agent if all you want to do is get into a house and show over and over and over and over again without getting a pre-approval. But what is it going to cost you? And that's really what they're trying to say. It's going to cost you, whether it's emotion, time, energy, all the things spent. And last but not least, I want to touch base on this because it matters. They are showing you and setting up these properties and showing you these homes. We are all volunteers until we get to the closing table. So please take note of that. These women are walking away from their husbands, their fiancés, their families, their kids, their grandkids, their dogs, it doesn't matter, to show you these houses. Some of this is also asking out of respect for their time, their energy, them walking away for a whole weekend to do this for you, and then you go, yeah, sorry. So think of that, right? And I'm not saying, but it that matters too.
And the person whose house it is.
Yes.
Don't forget what they go through trying to get everything.
They clean it.
Yes.
They have to remove their dogs, their cats, their whatever.
Kids.
They have to make sure it's clean. They got to make sure everybody's out of it. There's a lot that they go into too. And so some of this is just as simple as put yourself in their shoes and respect that, right? And I'm only saying it because I know that what they all go through, and I see it, and I won't, same thing on the lending side, I won't hand out, and I'll just say it, a half-assed pre-approval and put them out on the road without doing my due diligence of getting a couple pay stubs and W-2s, because I know if I'm just saying, yeah, whatever, that's putting them on the road to take away from their families on junk that might not even work and just disappointing the whole transaction, those sellers, those buyers. What do we say? There's about 25 people involved in every transaction by the time you have seller, seller's agent, buyer's agent, lender, their team, title work, their team, insurance people, their team. We have appraisers. There's so much that goes into this, you guys. And all of us are, all of those 25 people I just talked about are all volunteers until we get to the closing table. That's how this industry works. And so just asking for that little bit of due diligence, upfront respect, that's also, not only does it protect you in so many ways, but it protects the industry in general. And that's why we keep doing this. So, last but not least, what's the final thing as a buyer's agent you want to tell the buyers to know to set them up for the best experience possible? Like Payton, if you could say just give them one bit of advice from you, what would that be?
Don't fall in love with a home until you're at the closing table.
True.
Please. You can only like it. And then you can like it a lot when you get an accepted offer. You can love it at closing.
Yep.
Amen.
I love it. Yeah. That's so good.
I do that all the time, and then buyers come to me, and we'll be at the final walkthrough, and they're like, I can't love it yet, though.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're right. We are not at closing.
Fair enough.
I guess most of the podcasts we've talked about sitting down with your buyer's agent. Just sit down with them and do the consult. Don't expect them just to get up and run.
Yeah.
I
Get to
think
know them.
That's the most important. We need to make sure that you're ready. You're ready to go. We understand what you're looking for, and to help you be successful.
Yeah. I love it. Dawn, last but not least.
It should also be fun and enjoyable.
Yes.
Right? Like
Thank
that's
you.
the part.
Relax.
Like, yeah, just let us do the work. Right? Let us do all the stuff behind the scenes and feel all the feels. It's okay to be upset and sad and crazy and all over the place, and you're not bothering me and all of the things. It's okay. I'm willing to listen. We're all willing to listen to you.
Yeah.
Work through it. Some people need to process out loud. So process with your agent.
Yep. And that's a great point. Some people do need to process out
Yep.
loud, but we're all here working for you.
Yeah.
And just know and trust that. So, ladies, I can't thank you enough for doing this. It was one of them. Like I said, we were doing a mastermind. I was like, hold on. We need to bring this to the podcast because these are things that are real life that matter that we go through every day right now. So for those of you listening, thank you. If you feel like anyone could learn or enjoy the last couple podcasts, share it with them. Don't forget to like. We drop them every Wednesday, and we are always just so grateful that you are still listening to us, talk and hopefully be educated through all of it. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.